The following is produced by 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content and is sponsored in part by a grant from Paul Mitchell Salon Hair Care.
You sometimes feel like you can't win? We seal our houses to maximize the energy spent on heat and air conditioning, but because of all the chemicals, plastics, and synthetic fibers around, the indoor air pollution can be 100 times worse than the air outside. Hi, I'm Ed Begley Jr., and this is today's Environment. Come along with us as we search for answers in a world full of environmental questions. This box and all the padding weighs nearly as much as the TV that came in it. Every day, Americans buy millions of televisions and other fragile equipment and throw out tons of boxes and packing materials that continue to stuff our landfills to capacity. This next idea may help change that.
It can be your worst nightmare, shipping. Whether you're sending a priceless heirloom or an inexpensive gift, in traveling from point A to point B, it often arrives looking like it visited point C. Crushed, crumpled, and cracked. Businesses and households alike often pack extra pounds of waste material into a box to cushion and protect the merchandise.
But packaging waste now accounts for over 30% of our municipal solid waste. Materials used to fill package voids or to cushion and protect products are a very visible part of what we throw away.
Some suppliers in the packaging industry hear this concern loud and clear and work to minimize both the wasteful use of their products and waste from their operations. This inflatable plastic air bladder, designed by Sealed Air Corporation, uses air to fill package voids and deflates to 1% of its inflated volume when no longer needed. When the product calls for even more protection, they designed a foam cushion that literally grows around an item while using a minimal amount of material. On every one of these Instapak cushions, they print a toll-free number for easy return. A team of operators handle the phones and make arrangements for the best way to reclaim the material. On return, the foam can be diced into smaller particles and packaged as self-contained, reusable packing cushions. It can also be used in the manufacture of carpet padding, or it can be diverted for use as clean-burning fuel and waste to energy plants. Even if it ends up at the landfill, it crushes down to only 10% of its original volume and remains environmentally stable. Environmental sensitivity doesn't stop at the landfill. This foam is not made with CFCs, HCFCs, or other ozone-depleting chemicals. Researchers constantly strive for new ways to minimize the impact of their packaging materials on the environment. Their famous reusable bubble wrap is made with recycled polyethylene. These padded mailers are an alternative to corrugated cartons. The bag is made from 77% recycled fibers, 62% of which are post-consumer. And the padding is 100% recycled, much of it newspapers. Even the paper used for package void fill comes from recycled pulp. 2 company-owned paper mills use 100% recycled fibers exclusively. In all, Sealed Air Corporation recycles or reclaims over 100 million pounds of materials every year.
Cushioning, void fill, and protective packaging all remain necessities for keeping the items we ship from becoming waste themselves. But designing these materials to protect our products without impacting our environment poses a very important challenge to the packaging industry. Because when we pack an item and mark it fragile, we must remember that so is the earth.
Score 1 for our planet. Over 30% of U.S. paper mills use only recycled paper. If we keep recycling, that number can grow higher than the trees it saves. Get involved with today's environment today.
Recycle. Most environmental experts agree that recycling represents the simplest thing any one individual can do for the environment. So don't treat your trash like garbage. It's a valuable raw material. If you don't believe me, watch this.
Stop. Don't trash that can. You could be throwing out a piece of American history. The steel can that holds your chowder may have served in the Pacific during World War II. That's because steel can be recycled over and over and over again. Ordinary coffee cans can be transformed into magnificent automobiles. Aircraft carriers for one generation can become the beams of a dream house for another. In fact, new steel simply cannot be made without old steel, called scrap. All steel products contain at least 25% scrap, and many consist of up to 100% of the recycled metal. Right now, about 94% of the steel from retired automobiles is reclaimed. Steel's magnetic attraction makes it easy to separate from trash and recyclable materials. Steel cans usually go right into the same bins as aluminum, glass, and plastic containers. The Steel Recycling Institute promotes and encourages all recycling, but specifically strives to increase steel recycling. That includes what you may consider to be tin cans. In reality, tin cans are steel cans with only a very thin coating of tin. In 1993, 48% of steel cans, more than 1 million tons, were recycled. The goal to reach a 66% recycling rate by the end of 1995 can be accomplished if everyone recycles about 95 cans a year. That may sound high, but you probably use nearly 150 steel containers every year. Recycled steel continues to be a valuable national resource. Every ton preserves 2,500 pounds of iron ore, 1,000 pounds of coal, and 40 pounds of limestone. Every year, over 100 billion pounds of steel are recycled. The energy savings alone could supply power to 18 million homes for 12 months. Sources at the Steel Recycling Institute target the cans in your cupboard as a valuable resource for new metal. You can even recycle steel oil filter casings. Currently, more than 60% of major appliances like refrigerators, dishwashers, and ovens also make it back to the scrapyard. In an environment where every resource remains precious, recycling steel now to preserve our raw materials for later proves to be an irresistible process, whose attraction is magnetic. In a moment, on Today's Environment, another form of packaging material avoids the landfill and reverse vending machines that help us recycle. Next.
Let's talk trash. Every year, the average American throws out over a half ton of garbage, and more than 400 pounds of that is packaging. We're stuffing our landfills full of empty boxes and containers. This next segment takes a look at one remedy.
Meet the seducers. They catch your eye and make you buy. It's not the product, it's the package. A marketer's last chance to influence your buying decision. The shelf space at the point of purchase marks the final front in the war for your dollars. But these sexy packages aimed at consumers consume an enormous portion of America's natural resources and raw materials. Every year, 50% of all paper produced in the U.S. goes into packaging. Unfortunately, this massive commitment of energy and resources too often ends up in garbage cans instead of recycling bins. Since 1960, waste from all packaging doubled and accounts for over 30% of all trash loads headed for the dump. In the past, the fruits of the packaging industry's success too often resulted in the spoils of the landfill. But some packaging companies now understand their role in the environment and strive to minimize their impact. This plant, owned by the Packaging Corporation of America, recycles waste paper to reuse again as paper for many of their packages. They design their containers with the 3 R's in mind: reduce, reuse, recycle, and operate 4 major recycling plants that accept waste from businesses as well as households. Management constantly encourages environmental stewardship for its plants and people. Their molded fiber group has grown to one of the largest users of recycled newspaper in the country. Producing biodegradable egg cartons alone consumes over 10,000 tons of recycled newspapers every month. In 1992, All Packaging Corporation of America operations managed to divert over 750,000 tons of fiber waste from the landfills and sent it back onto the store shelves in new packaging. Although recycling remains a top priority, management also tackles other environmental concerns. An enormous capital investment went to modernizing old facilities to reduce air pollution from harmful emissions. For example, the plant reduced volatile emissions by more than half by participating in a voluntary EPA program to reduce toxics, and has reduced total hazardous waste by more than 70% through a combination of new equipment and improved operating procedures. In the competitive jungle where survival of the fittest rules the bottom line, innovative packaging stands out as an essential weapon in the marketing arsenal. But the war on the store shelves doesn't always have to take its toll on the environment. Innovative producers who reuse and recycle can package the things we buy without selling out the earth.
Did you know that a drip that takes 10 minutes to fill up a coffee cup will waste over 3,000 gallons a year? Any leak is a big leak. Lug them up. And get involved with today's environment today.
This aluminum can is precious raw material. If recycled, it'll be back in the store in about 6 weeks. Unfortunately, about 70% of all metal gets only one use and then trashed. What a waste. Hopefully we can reduce that figure, and here's one idea that might help.
No, this tape is not running backwards. You're watching what may be one future for can and bottle return. In this reverse vending machine, you put the can in and either the money comes out or a receipt for your refund. In states that require deposits on bottles and cans, this system can make individual recycling efforts pay off. Recycling stands out as one of the major environmental challenges of this and the next century.
Reusing our raw materials over as many times as possible, that's what it's about. Our overflowing landfills and dwindling virgin resources make it necessary for us to transform our habits from those of a disposable society into one that adheres to the credo, waste not, want not.
These reverse vending machines, developed by Tomra Systems, accept glass, plastic, and aluminum beverage containers without interrupting store personnel. In fact, one model even accepts all three products and automatically sorts them to correct bins. State-of-the-art laser scanning technology identifies the container, the source, and the refund due, all from the UPC code. These machines constantly tally a computerized inventory and accounting for the store's records, either on site or in the central store office. Based on volume reduction concerns and the need for color separation to keep resin bases pure, specialized programs control whether to crush, shred, and/or separate cans and bottles. Containers are accepted whole if they're to be sanitized and refilled. The computer inside the equipment keeps track of the returns and issues a receipt for the refund due. Tomra North America sources cite studies that show that the automatic return handlers can cut transaction time by as much as 11 seconds per container. This makes recycling quicker and easier for the consumer and the store. These reverse vending machines were invented in Norway and are used extensively in Europe, where governments require significant deposits or taxes on any products that may impact the environment. Although simple to use, the application of advanced technology can make these machines valuable resources in efficiently handling returnables. Simplifying the recycling process for consumers, distributors, and collection sites should prove to increase everyone's cooperation in the effort and may be one dramatic leap in diverting cans and bottles from landfills.
Most environmentalists concur that the single most important thing that we as individuals can do to help the environment is to recycle as often as possible. Now, the energy saved from recycling just one glass bottle could run a 100-watt bulb for 4 hours.
Any device that simplifies bringing reusable materials back for reprocessing must be considered a friend of the planet. Meet the insulator, insulation that conserves energy, plus a new organic chemical helps clear the air around landfills. Next on Today's Environment.
I'm being audited, and I've never felt better, because this one's an energy audit by a trained specialist. Every watt you save can reduce your utility bill and spare us all the environmental cost of generating that power. There's many ways to help conserve, and here's one idea.
Meet
the insulator.
Now, this isn't a new action classic destined for video shelves everywhere. Actually, this process may prove to be a real-life environmental superhero.
Proper insulation helps to keep the energy that we use to heat or cool our home right where it belongs, inside the house. Unfortunately, much of the energy used in American homes is wasted. It gets lost through windows, leaks, and radiated right through poorly insulated walls and ceilings.
But this cellulose insulation doesn't merit attention simply for the amount of energy it saves and the resulting emissions it prevents from fouling the air. This thermal blanket takes our environment one step further because it comes from recycled newspapers. Sources at the Cellulose Insulation Manufacturers Association praise this current technology because it keeps energy in the house and newspapers out of our landfills. When Johann Gutenberg invented the first printing press, no one imagined the enormous tonnage of dailies, weeklies, and monthlies that would pour off modern-day presses. Each week, printing the Sunday newspaper alone consumes over 500,000 trees. This cellulose insulation reuses the fibers from those trees as an alternative to fiberglass. Installed in walls and attics, it forms a seamless monolithic blanket between studs and joists. Studies at major universities by utility companies and weatherization agencies have shown that cellulose actually outperforms the most commonly used insulation by 25 to 38%. And because it contains fire retardants, cellulose-insulated walls and ceilings actually resist fire better than other insulation materials, including non-combustible insulation. Officials at the Cellulose Insulation Manufacturers Association also note a concept called embodied energy. 1 pound of cellulose insulation takes about 500 BTUs to produce, while that similar pound in fiberglass may gobble 10,000 BTUs or more. Therefore, far less energy gets consumed making and installing cellulose insulation. The average American consumes over 120 pounds of newsprint every year. That's about 1 tree. Now, if everyone recycled just 1 newspaper every 10 days, we would save 25 million trees. This cellulose insulation process gives us another way to benefit from those harvested trees and adds to the growing demand for yesterday's newsprint.
Few forms of expression allow Americans to exercise their freedom of speech like the newspaper. And now, yesterday's views from the Fourth Estate may help improve the energy state of our homes.
America is in a new space race, but this time it's not a contest for the heavens against Russia. It's a challenge between us and our trash. There's no more room to continue burying it, and that doesn't make the problem disappear anyhow. Watch this.
You know you can't judge a book by its cover. This may look like a typical setting, but underground there's another story festering. Toxic gases building up from decomposing garbage could make this covered landfill site go ballistic. But a special technology vents these gases so that former dumping grounds can be put to alternate uses. An intricate network of wells and pipes drilled into the covered waste allows the explosive chemical compounds to escape without igniting. But simply releasing these emissions into the atmosphere would be a serious environmental mistake. Sulfurous compounds, carbon dioxide, and methane list just a few of the gases released when trash decomposes. Some covered landfill site managers merely incinerate these compounds as they leave the flue, but that solves nothing. It only changes one gas, hydrogen sulfide, to sulfur dioxide, which goes into the air. You can't miss that toxic gas because it smells like rotten eggs. And that gas takes a heavier toll on our environment than the odor does on your nose. When sulfur dioxide reacts with water, it falls to the earth as acid rain. Some closed or capped landfill operations attempt to minimize the air pollution from what's under the ground and scrub the gases before venting them. This system uses an organic chemical compound called EnviroScrub from the Quaker Chemical Company. The formula specifically reacts with the hydrogen sulfide and mercaptans, which are other sulfurous compounds. Only those compounds are separated from the gas heading up the stack. The escaping vapors get bubbled through a vessel containing the scrubbing chemical. The sulfurous emissions react and fall out on contact with the fluid. Methane, carbon dioxide, and other emissions continue through the flue. The methane can then be recaptured before it escapes or be incinerated and used to generate electricity. The scrubbing process eliminates sulfur-based emissions and that all-pervading noxious smell of rotten eggs that can render the area around landfills nearly uninhabitable. Sources at Quaker note that since EnviroScrub only reacts with the sulfurous compounds, it makes reclaiming the sulfur from the spent liquid practical and economical. This allows the formula and the sulfur to be recycled and eliminates what could be a liquid hazardous waste stream. By the year 2010, estimates predict that 80% of today's landfills will be closed and covered over. Scrubbing the gases from refuse decomposition looms as a vital challenge to prevent the natural process of biodegrading from degrading our air. If we can clear the air around the nation's landfills so that these sites can be put to new uses, it may help give our whole environment the sweet smell of success.
This spray nozzle helps conserve water, and that's something Americans need to do. Right now, we each use about 580,000 gallons per year. If everyone else in the world did that, there'd be no water left. I hope this show has inspired you to think more about the world around you. Join me again next time as we explore more environmental solutions on today's environment.
The preceding program was sponsored in part by a grant from Paul Mitchell Salon Hair Care. This has been a presentation of 5 Star Productions USA.